What is good, folks, and welcome back. And today, I do want to talk about this because this is an interesting trope when it happens. Part of what makes a really good villain redemption arc for me is if they include a point of relapse. When a villain sees that there is good in them or sees a crossroads point where they could go and become something better, but instead, they just go back into old habits and become exactly like how they used to be. Or if anything, something worse. Zuko is a great example of this, but I want to use this time to talk about Catra from She-Ra Princesses of Power, because hers is phenomenal as well. Because while she doesn't have that crossroads of possibly becoming a good person like Zuko does, she has that crossroads moment where she could at the very least be in a better environment and be happy for once in her life. She had that option to stay in the Crimson Waste and rule that place with Scorpia. They could have been away from the Horde, away from the princesses, away from all of her toxic past and her baggage that was holding her back and only hurting her. And she could have stayed with somebody who is at least looking out for her best interest and does care about her. But Catra can't just let it go and move on. She still has unresolved parental issues and unresolved abandonment issues that eventually push her back over the edge. In fact, it just makes her spiral even worse because now she is just flat out willing to nuke the entire world just out of spite for the sake of acknowledgement and to, for once in her life, finally get to win. But after all that fails, now her true redemption arc can begin because now she's pushed everyone away and is only left with herself and somebody in a comparable position to her to at least relate to. When all that anger, spite, hatred, and jealousy and abandonment subside, we see the person underneath all of that. The extremely fucked up person underneath all of this. What makes this arc for Catra so interesting for me is that it finally gets the full view of Catra as a character. She was a person raised in an extremely toxic environment, and because of abandonment and her trauma, she was never able to escape that. In fact, she spiraled so badly that she ended up in an even more toxic environment. She had that opportunity to escape, but she just couldn't. She needed that sense of validation in her own existence, somebody to give her a purpose and to actually value her as a person. And in doing so, that ended up putting her in an even worse situation than she started.